Welcome. This is Samantha Scaly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. This is Samantha, your host. Today, I brought on my dear friend and client, Miss Chelsey Dixon. Chelsey talks to us today about her journey through her battle with her eating disorders, and she really talks about how every day is an opportunity for us to get deeper connected into our bodies and for us to heal and grow a little bit more. Chelsey recently completed the Society, which is our signature group coaching program, and she had such an incredible transformation. And so I wanted her to come on the show and to really share that with you guys. Chelsey is the owner and principal photographer at Chelsey Luren Portraits, a portrait studio specializing in helping women feel confident and beautiful through boudoir and glamour photography. After a full recovery from a decade-long eating disorder, she transformed her passion for art and helping others into a career of photography. She infuses body positivity in her business. She creates a safe space with her clients to transform and reconnect with themselves through timeless portraits. I hope you enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. I am super excited for this conversation. So excited. You guys heard me intro Chelsey in her bio, and I am so grateful, number one, for you, Chelsey, for coming on the podcast, sharing your time with us. And I'm super excited to dig into your story because it's real and it's fresh. And I love the way you tell it. And for a lot of our listeners, sharing our story and with not only one person, but with like a community is a vulnerable thing, and I honor you so much. Chelsey and I have known each other, what's it, like 3 years now, maybe?
About that?
Yeah. And I've seen you just like come alive and just in your work and who you are as a woman. And it's so inspiring for me. So I cannot wait for our listeners to get a little insight of who you are. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excuse me. Thank you for having me. I'm super, super excited to be here. I love all of our conversations in general. So to have like an intent behind it, to be able to help other people is just like the cherry on top.
It's going to be good. Yeah. So number one question we ask all of our guests is, what is the number one thing about life that makes you come most alive?
I think for me, there's a lot of things that like just make me like get all bubbly up, like bubbled up and just like super excited. But I think for me, one of the biggest things is connection with other people. So real conversation. Like, I'm not a surface level kind of person. I can't handle small talk. I think it's just such crap. I hate it so much. So if I can have like real connection with people and real conversation, and especially with people that are excited about something, people that are excited and passionate about things, I get super lit up and fired up by other people's enthusiasm. So I think that for me is like the best thing in the world.
Absolutely. I think it's super interesting because like going back in like tribal times, like women thrive off of connection so much, like we did things together all the time. It was connection, collaboration. And I feel like my intention and my mission is to like infuse more of that back into like times now, because I feel like we've been very disconnected from that. And oftentimes the very thing, which is vulnerability, the very thing that we need in order to create those deep connections with women is the thing that we're missing. And in a culture of like people pleasing and putting on a front, we tend to like sift into those like surface level conversations where when we can develop like intimacy, like real, clear, clean intimacy with other humans, to be like, hey, I see you and I feel you. It's one of the most beautiful things ever.
Absolutely. And that whole aspect of vulnerability is not at all something that I had up until like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. Like I was not willing to talk. Like there was nothing above or nothing more that I would delve into other than that.
What do you feel like you were afraid of? What did you think that you were going to find if you went there?
I think it was a lot of just fear around being rejected from other people, you know, being afraid of who I was and being afraid of being seen, even though that's exactly what I had wanted. There was still a lot of fear around it, and just thinking like, oh, no one's ever going to love me. No one's ever going to accept me. So I think that was a big part of that for me.
It's super interesting. This topic of being seen, right? It goes both ways, because we have a desire to be seen. Like, I want to be seen, but at the same time we're hiding.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know you've experienced like what this feels like and breaking out of that. And I think for a lot of women, especially pertaining to, you know, disordered eating and body image issues, it's like, that's fucking terrifying to be seen. But then equally, like, we cannot be seen without the totality of who we are coming to the table, right? The good, and I'm not going to even call it bad, but like the light, the dark, the in between, the gray, the black, the white, like all spectrums, in order to truly be seen, that all needs to come forward. And it doesn't need to come forward on Facebook. You know, we don't need to post it on a post, but like just being able to have, you know, containers where we can just share our whole self in and allow that shame to dissipate. So when you were kind of going through your healing journey, who did you confide in, or how did you find those spaces where you could just speak up and just be heard and allow your story to be known and know that you're actually safe in that exchange?
That was a huge, huge struggle for me, to be totally honest. For me, when my eating disorder started back when I was about 8 years old. So when you're that young, you don't really know what's going on. So it took
8 years old.
Yeah.
That is so young.
I know. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so for me, by the time I was about 11, it was very full blown. And then that was a secret that I kept up until I was about 20 or so. Because for me, that's when I went into recovery. And when I started my recovery, I had no support at all. My family, I love them dearly, and we're in a much better place now. However, I had zero support from my family. My parents were not supportive. My sisters didn't know anything really about it. So for me, I had a handful of friends. I had like my dear friend Amber. God, I love her so much. Her and her husband were extremely helpful for me. And then from there, when I had entered into the outpatient program that I was a part of, that's where I got the majority of my support from. There was, oh my God, my caseworker, Elspeth, we're still like friends. We still talk, even though I haven't gone to see her in a while. I haven't needed to go and see her in probably 4 years now. But yeah, she was my rock. She helped me. And yeah, without those core people,
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and it's sisterhood is what it is, right? Like developing sisterhood to be like, yo, I have this issue that I'm dealing with. I've got all of the shame and I just need an outlet. I just need to share it. And so for a lot of people, the feedback that I get from women, or I should say what a lot of women say to me is like, I've never told anyone this, you know, like, Chelsey is in our society, is in our signature program. And you know what it's like up in there? Like women are like, okay, I've never shared this with any other human in my entire life. I've barely even told myself. And here I go. Yep. And I don't know about you, but I can actually see the energetic shift before they do that and after they do that.
Absolutely. There's a few, I will not mention any names, but there's a few girls that are in there, and like seeing where they've been from like the start of the program up until now, they change just within themselves. They're glowing, like, and we're not even close to done the program yet. Like it's so freaking amazing. I love it. And just seeing people willing to get vulnerable and like open up about things, like that's how you heal. You have to open yourself up, and you have to shine light on whatever it is that's causing you shame. Otherwise, there's no way that you're going to move through it.
And I think that's like a really beautiful thing about you, Chelsey, is you've come so far and you're sharing your story while you're still going through the process. which is so beautiful, because so often it's like, we love to talk about like the story of the hero, like, oh, back in the day, 20 years ago, this is what happened. And look at me now, like we love hero stories, but like, I truly feel like it really takes another level of courage, like deep courage and vulnerability, to be like, yo, this is where I'm at right now, and I want to share my experience with you as I go through it. It seriously is mind blowing, and I want to truly honor you for that, because I know you're like, people are going to be listening and they're going to be like, I can do this. I can do this. Like, I don't have to wait until I'm quote unquote healed, whatever that means. There's actually no such thing, in order for me to start sharing. And the more we start sharing in safe containers with people that we trust, we put our story in the hands of safe people. Not everybody has to hop on a podcast and share, or share it online. That's not at all. And for a lot of people, that's not their MO. You and me, it's like, that's what we're doing, because that's what we want to do. And by virtue of doing that, we're going to activate and inspire other people to share their story. And that may mean share their story with one person. That may mean share their story with like their mom or their family, or maybe a few close girlfriends. But by virtue of them sharing their story, it dissipates the shame, and then it creates deeper grounds for healing. So I just want to like, hallelujah. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
What do you feel through this journey was of healing from your eating disorder was one of the biggest catalysts for growth?
One of the biggest shifts that I've made, or one of the things that was holding me back the most?
What was something that you've implemented in your life that you've seen drastic change from? So whether that's like, I don't know, present, connecting into your body, like what do you feel was the biggest thing?
I think for me, and this is still something that I am constantly working on, is shifting away from perfectionism. Realizing that perfectionism isn't just like, it's not like, oh, I have really high standards for myself. No, you're like actually like driving yourself into the ground by doing that, because you're holding yourself to a standard that's not humanly possible. So I think for me, the shift that I've used is done is better than perfect, because the thought of like having to like reach a certain level and then I'll be good enough, or, doing this and it has to be done this exact way, or like there's no point at all. Like being able to actually just start doing something, like letting go of that idea of perfectionism is, yeah.
It's such a trap. I think like when can you remember actually when you were younger, because we develop perfectionism because we're trying to control our circumstance, because somewhere along the lines, it wasn't good enough, and we did not feel loved for hitting a certain benchmark, whether that was like something our parents said. I think like my family's amazing, but like all parents do a number on their children, like something small that like my mom would have said would have had like a huge impact on me, like, and it would have like reinforced my not good enough stuff. It did not come from a place of malice at all. And that was not her intent whatsoever, but that's how I perceived it, is I'm not good enough yet. So then I spent my life, and you did too, we share this, is being a perfectionist, procrastinating, not taking action, because we're like, I can't get messy. I have to look polished. Like, what are people going to think of me? I will not receive love if I get a little bit messy. Right. And that is so deeply rooted in disordered eating. It's like, I'm going to fucking kill it, or I'm just going to like screw the diet, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm going to count every single calorie and get on the scale and everything's going to be perfect, or not at all. It's like that black and white mentality. So I would love for you to share from your personal experience, how have you personally been able to like settle into the gray area? Like I call it in the society, it's like, let's dance in the gray. Let's just be okay with what is, enough is enough. Enough is enough. That's it. Like, just be enough. It's all good. So how have you been able to recognize like, okay, cool, I realize that perfectionism is actually killing me and it's digging me, like you said, into this hole. What was the shift? What did you have to believe or practice for you to settle into this like cozy gray area?
Oh, that has been,
that's the journey.
Yeah, that honestly has been a huge journey for me. And to be honest, like, I don't think I would have let go of it if I hadn't have gotten to the point in my eating disorder where it's like, okay, so, you can hang on to this idea of perfection, and you can live there, you can do that, or you're going to die. Like for me, it was at that point where my weight had hit such a point that like my heart was going to give out. Like I was at like months to live. So I was faced with the fact like, okay, so either you shift away from this whole space that you've been living in for the past like 15 years, or you're going to die. Like,
right.
What do you want?
What do you want? Yeah.
Yeah. And so then from there, it's just been like very much like, okay, so what can I do to like accept myself just that little bit more here? Or like, what can I do to like, you know, kind of play with something that I'm not really good at and be okay with that. You know, so it's definitely, I think that I've gotten a lot better with it over the past like couple years here.
Yeah.
But it's a big a big scope of things.
100%. It's, I think often we have to have evidence for, I can get messy and screw up and still be loved. You know, like I can totally bomb something and show up, you know, disheveled, and people will still love me and people will still accept me, because ultimately the fear in that is I am not loved. I am not lovable. And this all comes down from self. This is just projections, right? I am not lovable, AKA I don't love myself. I can't be okay with myself. So this whole concept of like dancing the gray and like derailing our desire and our obsession with perfectionism is, how can I love myself as is? How can I look at myself in the mirror and go, God, you're amazing just the way you are. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. You can just be and show up and do you. And that's good enough. Now that doesn't mean or suggest that we can't set intentions and we can't desire more, of course, but true, and you know this, true transformation must come from a place of acceptance and love first. We have to accept our dark parts. We have to accept the parts of us that are a little bit sticky and you know, are holding a lot of negative energy. And we have to like include that into our experience while knowing that like, hey, where I'm at right now is beautiful and perfect and amazing. And I have a desire to transform. And I think for a lot of the women that I work with, that's one of the hardest things to understand is being okay with what is. How can I be totally okay with what is and accept what is and still transform? And the fear, and I want your opinion on this to see if this came up for you, is like the fear of acceptance is I will stay complacent. I will stay stuck. If I'm not driving myself with like a sledgehammer, like being like, go, 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 better, 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 more, 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 then I'm going to retreat and I'm going to be complacent. My life will suck. And I'm going to be worthless, or whatever the story is, right? The story that we make up in our mind as to what acceptance means to them. So I'd love to hear your insight on this. Is like when you were coming into this journey of like accepting where you were at and just being okay with what is, what got triggered for you, and what were some of the blocks that you had to move through?
Oh, that's a
loaded question.
That is a very loaded question. And I think that there's definitely like a fear around it. All comes down to like not feeling good enough. And I think that's part of why, like you're saying, that, you know, you're just going to like keep pushing and pushing and pushing and forcing yourself to do things that aren't good for you, you know? And to be honest, like I didn't experience that so much so when it came to the recovery of my eating disorder, but where I have noticed for me that it does come up and it's something that I have to work on all the time is within my business. Cause I find that like, there are some times where I'm just like, okay, I need to go, 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 go. Otherwise I'm never going to achieve what I want. And I'm never going to be good enough. And in a way, like my business is an extension of myself. And so it definitely pops up in other areas of my life. So that concept is not something that's like foreign to me. Like when you say it, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that's like.
Like, I know what that feels like. Yeah,
no, for sure. But I think like, I think I definitely have that tendency to like push myself and push and push and push. So I think, getting really mindful and being present and being aware of what's going on and taking that time when you are pushing yourself to your limit, taking that time for yourself and focusing on self-care and like putting fuel back in the tank, you know, like that's so crucial, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, because we talk about it in the society, but like hustling for your worth, right?
Mm.
That's what you're doing. You know, your business is just an arena. It's just another place that shows you what's really going on inside, like anything, right? Our relationships, our relationship with money, our business, everything in life is a reflection of what's actually present within us.
Yeah.
And when we can look at life through that lens and just be like, whoa, growth, 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 like everywhere we turn, anything that triggers us or anything that's going on is just this divinely designed thing that we get to learn from and we get to go through. So
Yeah.
noticing those patterns, right? Noticing those patterns. And for a lot of people, those who are listening, I want you to really let this one soak in. Because when we can truly understand this concept, that's ultimate self-mastery. When we can look at the things in our lives that trigger us and be like, cool, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. This is an opportunity for me to raise my level. This is an opportunity for me to expand and grow. And I've been brought into this interaction or this conversation or this situation by divine design because I need to up level and I need to step up. And when we can look at it that way and really analyze and dig out and extract the lessons from it, that is beautiful. And when we see the evidence of our growth happening, it's almost like, it's not like we welcome those situations, but when we come, we approach them with a whole new energy. I know personally for me, back in my diet depression days, it was like anything bad that happened, I was like, oh, for God's sake, oh my God, life sucks. And it was just like fight against myself and fight against what is. And when I began to just truly love what is and just know that everything is happening for me at all times, everything at all times, it changes the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything that you're saying, it resonates so strongly for me. And I think it's like a twofold thing. Like the first being that I totally believe that the world is a mirror. So whatever it is that you're seeing in other people, whatever it is that you love about someone else, or whatever it is that just really pisses you off, it's showing you what you already have within you. So if you love somebody for their courage or their authenticity, it's because that's a quality that exists within you, and vice versa. If you walk around and you think that everybody is an asshole and you're like, oh, everyone's a jerk, and like, oh, look at that person, like, it's because that's what you're doing. You're putting you're putting that energy out there. So it gives you a huge opportunity to like reflect on what you're doing and how you're being and what your potential is. And then the other part of that is like you're saying, that the world, things are happening for me, not to me. Using anything that comes to you, like there is a lesson to be learned. Taking everything, like no matter how painful it is, whatever it is that you're going through, no matter how much there is pain in that, you can learn from it. And to be honest, the more pain that there is, the more growth that you can have. And I know for me that like, if I had have just sat there and decided like, oh, life is happening to me, this sucks, I'm going to forever be stuck as this person that I am, I'm forever going to be my eating disorder, rather than shifting it into like, okay, so yes, this sucks, this hurts, but how can I grow from it? Like there's a point to all that pain. Like I'm able to help so many people by me moving through that. There's so much opportunity within pain.
I think, yeah. So two things are coming up for me right now. Pain, and this is the whole concept of changing our relationship to pain, which is essentially what we're talking about. Like, how can we, so when we were younger, we had this sensation in our body and we labeled it as that's pain, that's bad, get away from that, that's not good. And so that's been our association with it. When we experienced love, it was like, ooh, this is love, this is good, I want more of this is fantastic, let me feel this. So really, at the end of the day, all that is sensation. That's all it is, a sensation. And we make meaning around that sensation. I'm going to make meaning around, I'm going to label this. I'm going to, our ego loves to label things, right? I'm going to label this. This is good. This is bad. Get away, come closer, blah, blah. And we play this like game. But what if we can just say, cool, This is all sensation in this container, and we can just sit with all of it. We can sit and enjoy and sink into like the juicy feeling of like joy and bliss. And we can sit and sink into and dig into that feeling of pain and know that, cool, like you said, the more I have, the more I grow. You know, that in itself is like, woo, so liberating, so liberating. You know, liberation and freedom are the two words that come up all the time in this podcast, in my work, in like what people desire. And that is an act of allowing yourself to experience ultimate liberation and freedom when you're not bound by your mind, but you can just love what is in the moment with those sensations of pain and just inviting in this essence of curiosity. Like, I'm just going to be curious about why this pain's happening. Yeah. Because it's obviously here for a reason. Like Chelsey, you and I were talking about in our pre-interview, like you recognize you're out of alignment. You're like, oh God, I'm off the train a little bit. Let me like lean into that and love that and welcome it back on the train rather than being like, oh no, abort mission. You know, it's like, fuck the train, you know, it's like, no, like the train's still cool. Let's just like love this little piece that like slipped off and bring it back on. So this is this whole concept of like loving the totality of what is at all times. Yeah. Whew, I love it.
I do too. Well, I do now. I never used to. Like, but like when you can get to that point where you're actually okay with that pain and just using that, like it's a game changer.
It is. So for everyone who's listening, just maybe once today, because I think, you know, if you try and go balls to the walls and do this all day long, it might be a little bit overwhelming right out of the gate. But the next sensation you have of pain in your body, rather than using food to numb it or distracting yourself or going on social media and comparing yourselves to everyone and their dog, allow yourself to just settle into the possibility that, that's there for a reason. Let's ask our bodies, and we can do this. We can ask our bodies, like, what are you trying to teach me? What is the gift that you're trying to give me? Where are you trying to lead me right now? Because I see you and I feel you and I want to honor you and I want to love you. Start there and see what happens. You brought up an interesting thing. You know, a lot of people, when I say like, this came to me in meditation or my body communicated this to me, a lot of people just don't get it. And I know this is new for you, right?
It is a process. Yes.
Yeah. So like, how do you receive messages from your body that come from a place of like teaching and, you know, guidance? Like how does that show up for you?
Well, I know for me, like I've always had like a very strong intuition, or like I'll call it whatever your gut says. Like for some people that like the thought of intuition is like,
they're like, woohoo. Yeah. They're like, you're a freak. All right.
Well, the thing is, like anybody that I've had conversations with that is like, what the heck is an intuition? That's not a real thing. If I say to somebody like, and they're like, oh, I don't really know what I should do. I'm like, what does your gut say? And they're like, oh, it says this. Everyone has an intuition. And I know for myself that like, this has been so true of like clients and of friends and experiences and just anything in general. If my gut is telling me like, that's a bad idea, don't do that. No, Chelsey, no, you don't want to do that. And I'm like, no, it's all good. It's fine. At some point along the line, I know I'm going to be just kicking myself because I'm like, damn it, I knew that was not what I needed to do. And like, just learning, I think a lot of what it comes down to is like, I've always had that intuition. Like I've always had very strong sense of like, nope, red flags. I think a lot of what it comes down to for me is trust. And I know that this is something that we're working on in the society, like as we speak.
Good old trust.
Yeah.
Good old trust.
Yeah. And I know that I've had to really, really work on learning to trust myself again. And I know that for anybody that struggled with any kind of mental health issues, whether that's eating disorders, anxiety disorders, depression, anything along those lines, it's very easy to lose trust with yourself because of where you've been and the thoughts that might go through your head, or like, you know, all the terrible things that you say to yourself. It's hard to trust yourself when your mind goes to those places. You know, so learning to have compassion for yourself is huge. So like finding things that make you feel good that you can do for yourself when you're feeling really terrible is a great way for me. That's something that I did to help build back that trust.
For sure. Absolutely. What are some of those things? What are some of those things that you do to just really love yourself and be like, yo, girl, you've got this? What are some of those practices that you do?
So as far as something that goes on like the daily, every single day, and this has been only a practice that I've been doing for the past few months, but it has been so good for me. Every morning, I have greens. My God, freaking amazing for anybody that has never, never had them. I'm not going to lie. They're not easy to get down. It doesn't taste great, but they feel fantastic afterwards. So I have greens every day. I have egg whites first thing in the morning. I have those two things. And then I sit down and I have myself a nice iced chai. Like those three things for me are like,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
that's what I love to start my day off with. And then it's usually followed up by, I have a playlist that I listen to pretty much every morning. And it's just stuff like I will dance by myself in my underwear in the bathroom and like get myself pumped up for the day.
I love it. I love it. Iced chai. Are you not a coffee drinker?
I am not a hot drinker.
You're not a hot drink drinker.
No,
Wow.
I love soup, but I hate hot drinks. And I know that's totally weird, but I don't like hot drinks.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I realized over the weekend, I said to one of my dear, dear friends, I said, Jeremy, I got to stop drinking coffee because I realized that like, I think I'm addicted to it. I never sleep in. And on Saturday, I slept in. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sleep in. So I slept until 10 and I woke up with like an instant headache. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coffee withdrawal. Like I got to get off of this.
Yeah.
So then I said to him, I said, Jeremy, I gotta stop. I said, starting Monday morning, I am not drinking coffee. Like I don't like to depend on things, right? This is my whole jam. Like I depended on food. I depended on other things. I don't want another thing to like depend on. Yeah. And I was like, I feel like I'm becoming a little bit dependent on coffee. So Jeremy's like, cool, totally support you. Let's do it. He calls me Monday morning. He's like, hey, it was like 10 o'clock on Monday morning. He's like, I just want to like acknowledge you for not drinking coffee today. And like anything I can do to support you. And I was like, shit, I totally forgot. I was on my second cup. I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to do like a 30-day challenge or something like that. I don't know. I got to make it like public, you know, I need more accountability. That's too funny. But you know, yeah, coming back to that for me, it's like, what are the tiny things that we can do throughout our day that just like invite in like that feeling of like, I got you. I love you. I just want to honor you. Because truly, it's the seemingly insignificant things like that allow us to develop trust. Like if we can trust ourselves to just honor ourselves and do the things that feel good more often, we can then trust ourselves to do the bigger things in life that require a little bit more leverage. So I love those little practices in the morning that you do, like, you know, putting on your music, dancing in your underwear, making your greens and your egg whites and having your chai. It's like, those are like beautiful rituals that we can all take on. So for those of you listening, like I want you to actually think about, and this is something we don't think about a lot, what really makes you come alive? What really gives you that felt sense of like, like love, and like do more of those things. And I know it sounds like basic bitch kind of stuff, but really these are like the anchors that allow us to truly thrive. When we can be consistent, to trust ourselves enough to just love ourselves and do the things that makes us feel good, it opens up the door to so much more possibility. So if you are struggling with disordered eating, if you are like not trusting yourself around food, where can you trust yourself? And like, let's dial that in first. And when we anchor that in, the journey of self-trust through the things that trigger us most is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, I love it. So vulnerability, do you find, so it's interesting. Vulnerability is like this, such a hip word now, right? It's like, oh, just be vulnerable. But what does vulnerability mean to you? What does it mean to you? And how does it transcend or shift the shame that's in your body?
Oh, that is such a good question. You are so full of good questions today, Sam. I love this.
It's almost like I've done this before.
So for me, vulnerability, I think, is just, this is such a good question. It's a lot of different things. I think for the most part, though, it's giving yourself the space to be really honest and authentic, and sharing that with another person and trusting that they're not just going to like stomp all over your heart, you know? And to be honest, like being vulnerable, like it is scary. It is not easy. It is still something that for me, I'm like, do I do this? Do I not? Do I tell this person? And the only way that you can really have deeper and bigger and better relationships with other people is to get vulnerable. You will only ever stay at the surface and have those really unfulfilling conversations that you like, unless you're willing to get vulnerable. Like you have to open up yourself to it. Yeah,
absolutely.
What was the second half of your question?
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. It's like, how can we use vulnerability in order to dissipate shame? That's beautiful. And that's one of the biggest sticking points with my clients. You know, I talk about this with a lot of guests, this whole shame and vulnerability paradigm, and like really understanding it and really using it and finding safe containers where we can practice it. And I love it. And I think, you know, Chelsey, I love this about you. You've done this. You've done this and you're doing this. You've done it. You're continuing to do it. The more you do it, the more you're healing. So like watching you go through the society and just really like become, even being on this podcast, girl, like, you know how many people would not do this? Like
I would not have done this like 2 months ago. Are you kidding me?
Like, that's amazing. Like, seriously, that's so honorable. And I know people are listening going like, damn, like you're still going through it and you're openly speaking about it. So you're giving people permission to do the same. You're like the definition of an activator. You know, we talked about this in Hungry for Happiness. Like our tribe we're activators. You are an activator. You are activating the fire in someone else to share their story so that they can then heal. And I love it. So, I just want to share like a personal story with Chelsey. Chelsey's this incredible boudoir photographer in Vancouver. For those of you who live in Vancouver, and I know a lot of my listeners are in Vancouver, go check this girl out. My God, she did a shoot for me. It was just the most, I felt so sexy and expressed and like really owning my like body and my sexuality at a whole new level. And, you know, for those sort of things that can be shamed or seen as maybe just not like socially acceptable. I don't even know like how to frame that, but Chelsey gave me permission to settle into that side of me, my more like sensual side, and just really allow that part of me to come alive. So first of all, I just want to thank you for that. And I want you to share like what inspires you to be able to give women that experience of like being in front of the camera and being seen. Like, why do you do that? Like, what is that all about?
Oh, it's about a lot.
It's about a lot.
So for me, my entire like introduction to boudoir photography was having done a photo shoot myself. Like that was where I started. And for me, I had done a photo shoot because of my own recovery from my eating disorder. So when I did my photo shoot, I was at about like the 3-year mark of my recovery. And I really wanted to do something that celebrated my body and celebrated my journey and moving towards a deeper place of self-acceptance. And that was the first time that I'd ever done anything like that. Like that was so outside of my comfort zone, like to the point where I was like almost sick the morning of. Like I was so nervous about it. But when I did the photo shoot and when I saw the photos, like it blew my effing mind. Like I had never seen myself that way before. And it wasn't that like I'd been photoshopped to hell or anything like that, but it was like I saw myself the way that other people saw me.
Isn't that an incredible, it's such a gift. Like if we could only see ourselves how other people see us, we'd fall in love with ourselves.
It blew my mind. I was like, oh my, wait, that's me. Like that's who I've been all along. Like, what is this? And from that, I was so incredibly fortunate that the photographer, Carrie Heath, she's amazing. I love her. We hit it off and she offered me an internship. So I worked with her for 1.5 years. And then after that, I decided like, okay, so I want to be able to harness this and be able to make this my career. So I started up my own business. And that was like last week was like the 2-year mark, which is crazy. I know. so crazy.
Cool. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was just going to say that from my experience and my own recovery journey and everything else, like everything that I do is all body positivity and helping women feel empowered and like reconnecting with their bodies. And from that, and because I'm so open about my own struggles with things, I work with a lot of women that are recovering from eating just nothing that lights me up more, being able to help other people. It's like, it is, I get so excited about it that I could cry. Like it's such a gift and something I'm so grateful to be able to bring to other people.
It is a gift. You are a gift.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are a gift to this world. So thank you so, so, so much for doing this work, because it's women, it's time for women to come alive. It's time for women to truly own who they are. And I know from firsthand experience and from some of the women that you've worked with, like something as quote unquote simple as a photo shoot is the catalyst for them to discover who they are as a woman. And it's such a beautiful gift. And it's so interesting. Coaches and healers and whatever, there's all different ranges of things that we could do. And I feel like a photo shoot is just so approachable, you know, especially the environment that you create. So I love it. So thank you so much for doing this work in the world. And thank you so much for being on the podcast, Chelsey. I love you. You're a rock star. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
So they can find me on my website. So it's chelseylauren.com. So I'm going to spell it because everyone spells it wrong. It's CHELSEYLUREN.com.
Cool.
And you can find me on Instagram and
we'll put it in the show notes too, so you can click down if you are listening online.
Perfect.
Awesome. Chelsey, thank you so much for being here with us, and you have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, Sam. This was fantastic.
You're so welcome. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.